Chapter 1. The GPS died an hour ago, somewhere between rice paddies and mountains that swallowed the narrow road whole. Kenji gripped the steering wheel as another hairpin turn revealed only more forest. "We should have taken the expressway," Yuki muttered, adjusting her glasses over a crumpled map. "This scenic route was a terrible idea." "Come on, Yuki-chan." Masa laughed from the back seat, though his cheer sounded forced. "Where's your sense of adventure?" Emi pressed her face against the window beside him. Something about these mountains felt wrong. The trees grew too close together, branches intertwining overhead like gnarled fingers, blocking the afternoon sun. There, Kenji pointed ahead. A town. The settlement appeared without warning, as if they'd driven through an invisible barrier. Weathered wooden houses with traditional curved rooftops lined empty streets. The buildings looked genuinely ancient, forgotten by time itself. "Thank God," Yuki breathed. "Let's ask for directions." The streets were eerily quiet. No children, no elderly men outside shops, no humming vending machines. Even the air felt different, thicker, tinged with incense and something else Emi couldn't identify. Kenji parked beside what looked like the town's only shop, its faded sign advertising cigarettes in archaic kanji. The sliding door stood ajar, revealing darkness within. "Hello?" Kenji called. "Excuse me, is anyone there?" A figure emerged, an elderly woman in a dark kimono, white hair pulled back in a centuries-old style. Her movements were fluid, almost gliding, and when she smiled, Emi noticed her teeth were blackened in the old aristocratic fashion. "Travelers," the woman said, her voice carrying a strange accent. "You are lost." "Not a question." "Yes, Oba-san," Kenji replied respectfully. "We're trying to find Route 1. Could you tell us which direction?" The woman's smile widened, and her eyes, Emi noticed with a start, were completely black. "Directions," she repeated, tasting the word. "Yes, I can give you directions." She pointed down the main street toward another wall of forest. "Follow the red road until you reach the Shrine of Forgotten Names. Turn left at the stone lantern that has never been lit. Continue until you hear the crying, then turn right. Do not stop, do not look back, and do not speak to anyone you meet." The friends exchanged glances. The instructions made no sense. "I'm sorry," Yuki said carefully, "but we just need the main highway. Is there a simpler route?" The temperature dropped several degrees. "There is only one way out of Kekkaichi," the woman said. "Follow the red road." As she spoke, the street beneath their feet had indeed taken on a reddish hue, as if rust or dried blood had seeped into ancient stones. "What's Kekkaichi?" Masa asked, but the woman had retreated into her shop's darkness. "The barrier town," her voice floated back, growing fainter. "The place between leaving and arriving." The door snapped shut like breaking bones. The red tint seemed more pronounced now, and a temple bell had stopped ringing, leaving oppressive quiet that pressed against their eardrums. "Local folklore," Yuki said uncertainly. "Mountain people can be eccentric." But when they turned back to their car, the road they'd driven in on was gone. Instead, the street continued in both directions, curving into forest. Their Honda sat alone on what now appeared to be a single, endless road where solid forest stood behind them. "That's impossible," Yuki whispered. Emi felt cold settle in her stomach. "Maybe we should follow her directions." "You can't be serious," Masa protested, voice cracking. "That's not directions, that's a ghost story. Do you see other options?" Kenji gestured at the impossible forest. As they drove through the empty town, they found the shrine small, ancient, weathered grey. Dozens of faded plaques hung from its eaves. The Shrine of Forgotten Names. To the left stood a stone lantern carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly. Despite growing darkness, no light glowed within. The road became narrower, trees pressing in from both sides, branches scraping windows like fingernails on glass. The red tinge was darker here, almost purple in their headlights. They drove for what felt like hours, though Kenji's watch insisted only 20 minutes passed. Then they heard it crying. Not animal or human, but something else entirely. A keening sound from the earth itself. "Turn right," Emi whispered. The trees parted, revealing another road that hadn't existed moments before. As they turned, following impossible directions, Emi caught a glimpse in the mirror. The old woman standing in the red road, watching with black eyes. Hours later, they emerged onto a real highway with real signs and electric lights. They didn't speak until reaching their hotel, and even then, only in whispers. But they were out. They had followed the red road and escaped, or so they thought. Chapter 2. 3 days passed since Kekkaichi. They tried pretending it was shared hallucination brought on by stress and mountain air. Rational explanations came easier in daylight, on mapped roads with GPS signals, but the dreams wouldn't stop. Each night, one would wake gasping, remembering incense and rust, that terrible crying, or the woman's blackened teeth. Emmy had it worse. She claimed she could still hear the temple bell, faint but persistent. "It's just tinnitus," Yuki insisted over breakfast. "Altitude changes affect your ears." Emmy knew it wasn't tinnitus. The sound was too rhythmic, too purposeful. It was calling something. A construction detour led them into mountains again. This time, they had cell service and GPS. Those signals kept cutting out. "There's a town coming up," Kenji announced. "Yamakage, famous shrine there." "No," Emmy said immediately. "Let's keep driving." "Come on, Emmy-chan," Masa said, cheer sounding forced. What could go wrong? Yamakage was larger than Kekkaichi, but felt more desolate. Newer buildings stood empty with yellowed for rent signs. The few people they saw moved with strange purpose, all walking the same direction. They followed the stream up a winding path to a hilltop shrine. Red torii gates marked the approach, wooden structures gleaming with fresh paint. But something was wrong with the pilgrims. They walked in complete silence, faces blank and expressionless. Men in suits, elderly women in traditional dress, teenagers in uniforms, all moving with measured pace, eyes fixed on something only they could see. The shrine was dedicated to Inari, but the fox statues were wrong. Faces too human, expressions too knowing, stone eyes tracking visitors' movements. "Let's look quickly and leave," Kenji said, voice distant. The courtyard was packed with silent pilgrims facing the central building. They stood motionless like statues, the only sound whispers of wind through ancient cedars. Emmy felt the temple bell sound in her head, louder now, drowning out thoughts. "We need to go, now." But when she turned, her friends were gone. Panic flooded her as she searched the crowd of blank-faced pilgrims. "Kenji," she called. But the air swallowed her voice. She pushed through the crowd, but everyone looked the same, features blurred like photographs left in water. The whispers grew louder, hundreds of voices speaking in unison, words in a dialect so old she couldn't understand. Then she saw Yuki near the main building, perfectly still like the others, blank expression on her face. Her eyes were open but saw nothing, lips moving slightly, forming ancient words. "Yuki." Emmy grabbed her arm, shaking. "Wake up." But Yuki didn't respond. Her skin felt cold, and when Emmy looked into her eyes, she saw only emptiness, as if her friend had stepped out of her body. The whispering grew louder. Part of Emmy wanted to join, to let go and stand in peaceful silence. It would be so easy. No. The thought came from somewhere deep inside, a place whispers couldn't reach. She saw Masa and Kenji by a twisted fox statue. Same empty expressions, same moving lips. The bell was deafening now, shadows moving at vision's edges, shapes flowing like smoke between ensorcelled bodies. Emmy closed her eyes, covering her ears, but the sounds came from inside her skull. Behind her eyelids, she saw the shrine as it truly was, rotted wood, stained dark, cracked leering statues, ground of packed earth watered with decades of blood and tears. "No," she whispered, and the word had power. The vision flickered. She opened her eyes and saw her friends clearly, looking confused, blinking as if waking. "What happened?" Yuki asked, voice hoarse. "We need to leave. Right now." They stumbled down the hill together. As they drove away, Emmy looked back. The hill was wreathed in mist, and in it she saw shapes moving, not human shapes, but something with too many limbs and glowing eyes. The bell continued ringing in her head, fainter but present. Sometimes she heard the others humming the same melody, whispered by hundreds of voices in that terrible place. Chapter 3. The Inn of Restless Spirits. By the time they found Kasumino, dusk settled over mountains like a heavy blanket. The town appeared around a sharp curve, lights twinkling below like fallen stars. After previous encounters, normal community lights filled them with relief. The main street was properly lit with modern lamps, actual people walked sidewalks, vending machines hummed, crosswalk signals jingled a return to reality. "There's a traditional inn," Kenji pointed to the Yukimura-kan sign. "We could stay the night. I'm exhausted." The ryokan was perfect tatami floors, sliding paper doors, gentle garden stream sounds. The elderly proprietress greeted them with genuine warmth, her smile reaching her eyes unlike the unnatural expressions from previous towns. Their room was spacious, 4 futons around a low table. Paper screens opened onto a balcony overlooking stone lanterns among carefully tended trees. Dinner was a feast, mountain vegetables, river fish, warming sake. Yukimura-san served personally, sharing the inn's 200-year family history. As evening wore on, spirits lifted considerably. The room's warmth, food's comfort, their hostess's normalcy washed away lingering unease. "Maybe we just had bad luck," Yuki said, slightly tipsy. "Mountain weather does strange things." "Mass hallucination," Masa agreed. "Probably common." Even Emmy began feeling they'd overthought things. The temple bell had faded almost completely. They retired late, settling into futons with contentment from exhaustion and relief. For the first time in days, they felt safe. Emmy woke first. She lay still in complete darkness. Even garden lanterns seemed extinguished. She heard her friends breathing steadily, still asleep. Then she heard it again, soft footsteps in the hallway. Slow, measured steps that paused at their door before continuing, probably staff checking on guests. But the footsteps returned, stopping outside their door. This time, they didn't continue. Emmy held her breath, sensing a presence on the other side of thin paper, something waiting, watching, breathing in rhythm with hers. Soft scratching made her skin crawl. Something traced patterns on the paper screen, long, deliberate strokes following the doorframe's wood grain. "Kenji," she whispered, barely audibly. The scratching stopped. The air smelled different, not clean tatami and wood, but something stale and musty like a room closed for years. Temperature had dropped considerably, her breath misting in cold air. Her friend's breathing had changed too slow, too deep, with impossibly long pauses. The scratching resumed, faster now. Whatever was outside was writing on the screen, and she could make out shapes carved into delicate material. Old kanji she couldn't read but somehow understood. "Let us in. We've been waiting. So cold outside. So warm in there." The screen began bulging inward. Something pressed against it, something with shape and weight, but no warmth. The paper stretched as pressure increased, and she saw finger outlines, too many fingers, with joints in wrong places. The screen tore like ripping silk. Through the gap, she saw shapes in the hallway forms that flowed rather than walked, suggesting human figures but wrong in ways that hurt to perceive. They whispered in voices like autumn leaves. "So warm in there. Been waiting so long. The young ones have such heat." The cold paralyzed her muscles, slowed her thoughts. She could only watch as the first shape squeezed through a woman in white kimono, fabric hanging wrong, as if nothing solid was beneath. Her face was pale and beautiful, but eyes were black holes drinking remaining light. When she smiled, perfect teeth were far too sharp. The spirit glided to where Masa slept, kneeling with impossible grace, leaning over him, long black hair falling like a curtain. Frost formed on tatami where she touched. More shapes slid through, men in hakama, children in festival clothing, an elderly monk with clicking prayer beads. All had too pale skin, black eyes, hungry smiles. They spread throughout the room, each choosing a sleeping friend. The woman breathed directly onto Masa's face. With each exhalation, his skin grew paler, breathing slower. "So much warmth. Give it to us. We're so cold." Emmy watched friends begin changing skin, taking bluish tints, ice crystals forming in hair and eyelashes. They were being drained of heat, life force, essence that made them human. A young man in student uniform approached her futon, and she saw her breath forming clouds between them. "Don't struggle. It will be over soon. Then you can be with us. Always." His hand touched her forehead, and agony shot through her skull like every nerve crystallizing. But pain brought clarity, cutting through paralysis. With tremendous effort, she spoke. "Fire." The spirit jerked back. In the corner, she saw the small charcoal heater from earlier. If she could reach it, rekindle it. Drawing on unknown strength reserves, Emmy rolled off her futon. Spirits hissed and recoiled, not expecting resistance. She crawled across frozen tatami toward the heater. "Stop her," the woman commanded, but spirits seemed hesitant to approach. Emmy found matches beside the heater. Hands shaking, she struck one. The small flame blazed like a sun in frozen darkness. Spirits shrieked and retreated, becoming more insubstantial. She lit the charcoal and blessed warmth spread through the room. As temperature rose, friends began stirring. Color returned to their skin, breathing normalized. Spirits were fading, becoming translucent. Next time you won't be so lucky, the woman promised, dissolving into mist. By the time friends were awake, spirits were gone. Only the torn screen and lingering cold provided evidence. What happened? Yuki asked, shivering. We need to leave. Right now. They packed quickly, creeping out while dark, leaving money for their stay. Yukimura-san was nowhere to be seen. Emi wondered if she'd ever existed. As they drove away, Emi looked back. In dawn's pale light, she saw figures at windows, dozens, watching their departure with black, hungry eyes. The Yukimura-kan had served travelers for 200 years. But not all had ever left. Chapter 4. The Town That Doesn't Exist. They drove through the night, taking turns. None able to sleep. Every shadow seemed to hide, watching eyes. Every tree stand looked like a place for unnatural things. Dawn found them on an increasingly narrow, isolated mountain road. They'd followed signs promising highway connection, but signs led deeper into wilderness. This doesn't look right, Yuki said, studying her phone's GPS. We should have reached the highway hours ago. GPS has been glitchy since Kekkaichi, Kenji said, getting worse each time. Masa had been unusually quiet all morning. Now he spoke. There's something following us. They looked back down the winding road but saw only empty asphalt. In the mirrors, just glimpses, but something's there, keeping pace. Emi felt familiar dread. We need to find the highway, now. There. Kenji pointed to a sign indicating Nagarimura. Maybe someone can give directions. No, absolutely not. We don't ask for directions anymore. But their fuel gauge approached empty, and the narrow road offered no options. They had to stop. Nagarimura appeared suddenly like the others, but was different too, perfect, like a movie set. All traditional wood and paper construction, immaculately maintained. No modern elements anywhere, no power lines, vending machines, convenience stores. Just a main street lined with shops frozen in time. This doesn't feel real, Yuki whispered. People moved in traditional clothing, elaborate kimono, formal hakama, festival dress, but movements had the same measured quality from Yamakage, faces wearing such contentment they looked drugged. Look, Masa pointed to a sign. Nagarimura, established 1,823. Population 4. 4? Kenji counted visible people. There are 50 here. They found fuel at the far end, not a modern station, but a small building with hand-painted signs. An elderly man in pressed white shirt and dark vest emerged. Welcome to Nagarimura, he said with a deep bow. How may we serve you? His Japanese was archaic, formal in a way unused for decades. When Kenji asked for gasoline, the man produced an antique pump. You are travelers from the outside world. Yes, we're trying to get back to the main highway. The man's smile widened. Why would you want to leave? Nagarimura is perfect. No crime, poverty, sickness, death. Everyone is happy. Everyone belongs. That sounds wonderful, but we need to continue our journey. Of course, but first you must see our town properly. It would be rude to leave without accepting our hospitality. More townspeople gathered around their car, moving in that same gliding way spirits had at the inn, smiles too wide and uniform. That's very kind, but we really must. Please. A woman in silk kimono interrupted, placing her hand on their hood. You cannot leave yet. The sun is setting, and mountain roads are dangerous in the dark. Stay the night. Experience our perfect life. The crowd pressed closer, perfect contentment cracking. Behind smiles, something desperate flickered. We need to leave. Now, Emi said loudly. She'd noticed something chilling. The crowd was growing, but the same people repeated. The same woman in silk, same man in white, same children, appearing again and again like mirror reflections. Kenji stepped on the accelerator, but the car didn't move. Vines had grown from asphalt to wrap their tires, climbing car sides like grasping fingers. You cannot leave, the man said. Voice changed deeper, with harmonics from multiple throats. No one leaves Nagarimura. This is where journeys end. Townspeople were changing too. Perfect clothing faded to tattered rags, arranged hair became wild, skin taking grey, mottled appearance. What is this place? Yuki demanded. The last town, where all lost travelers come to rest. You've been traveling toward us for days, following paths we laid out. Understanding hit Emi. The directions. In Kekkaichi, they weren't random. They were leading us here. The man laughed like breaking glass. The red road always leads to Nagarimura. The shrine always whispers our call. The inn always chills blood to prepare for arrival. You've been coming home since you first asked for directions. Vines covered the car, growing through windows, wrapping arms and legs. False townspeople pressed against glass, faces becoming less human. Everyone is happy here, they chanted. Everyone belongs, everyone stays. Through writhing vegetation, Emmy glimpsed hope, a small shrine at the town square edge, its red torii gate somehow more solid and real than anything else in this nightmare. The shrine. It's real, not part of this illusion. Understanding flashed between them. In all encounters, genuinely sacred places had been different, older, more powerful than supernatural forces plaguing false towns. They tore free from grasping vines and burst from the car. Townspeople shrieked and lunged, but they were fast and desperate. They ran through dissolving Main Street as buildings flickered between perfect facades and ruins beneath. The shrine was small and ancient, dedicated to a local mountain kami, predating all false spirits they'd encountered. Emmy threw herself at the offering box, pulling out all her coins. Please, she prayed desperately in formal language for speaking to gods. Help us, protect us, show us the way home. The shrine bell began ringing, not the horrible haunting sound, but clear, pure tone cutting through unreality like a blade. False townspeople screamed and dissolved, forms scattering like mist. The path, Yuki shouted, pointing behind the shrine. A narrow trail appeared, winding up the mountainside. It looked treacherous, but was real in a way nothing else in Nagarimura was. They ran up the path as the town collapsed behind them, buildings melting like ice. The trail was steep, but with each step, air felt cleaner and more real. Hours later, exhausted and battered, they emerged onto a main highway. Real electric lights blazed, and legitimate traffic sounded like the most beautiful music. A highway patrol officer found them by the roadside, suffering from exposure and exhaustion. They said they'd gotten lost and their car broke down, which was true enough. He arranged for them to be taken to a proper hospital. Doctors found nothing wrong except dehydration and shock. Their families came to pick them up. Everyone agreed they'd been lucky to survive getting lost in such remote mountains. But Emmy knew it wasn't luck. It was the shrine, a genuinely sacred place with power older and stronger than hungry spirits feeding on lost travelers. She never told the real story. Who would believe it? But sometimes she'd dream of the red road and wake with incense taste in her mouth. And sometimes, driving alone on mountain roads, she'd see signs for towns with unfamiliar names: Kekkaichi, Yamakage, Kasumino, Nagarimura. The signs looked official with proper distance markers. But Emmy had learned her lesson. She never stopped to ask for directions in places like that. Instead, she'd drive past quickly, windows up, eyes straight ahead, until signs disappeared from mirrors like they'd never existed. Some roads were meant for getting lost on, and some towns existed only to ensure you never found your way home. Only Masa was never quite the same. Sometimes friends would catch him humming the same melody they'd heard whispered in that terrible shrine. Sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, he'd stare into the distance with perfect contentment, as if seeing something wonderful only he could perceive. But he never spoke of wanting to return to those mountains. After all, he was already there.